Alright, so we're officially in part 2 of patch 2.0 for Wuthering Waves, and you know what that means. It's time to take a look at the most trusted tier list in the Wuthering Waves community, at least on the EN side of things, right? We're here again at pridewin.gg, taking a look at the patch 2.0 tier list for Wuthering Waves, specifically, of course, for the Tower of Adversity. And the main reason why we're here is because of Roccia. Let's go ahead and take a look at where. Hold on a second. Hold on. This is part 2. She did come out. Hold on a second. Where the? Oh. But stupid jokes aside, I do want to preface this, like I do with every tier list video for Pridewin, that we don't always agree with what Pridewin has to say. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but generally this is the most trusted tier list in the community, so that's why we talk about this, and that's why we have these discussions, because they do tend to listen, and they do tend to make these adjustments as things go on, and as the meta develops, etc., etc. They are listening, and it is good to give them these critiques so that they know what they might want to look into or change, right? For example, Yangyang is in the hybrid slot now. Remember the days of her being in this supportive slot over here on the far right? Yeah, they do listen and they do make adjustments eventually, right? This is important to hold them accountable. So let's go ahead and talk about why we're mainly here, which is Roccia. I almost scrolled up at the top again, assuming a new character would be up there, but no. We're down here at tier 1 because she is an AoE Havoc supportive role kind of character. She's more of a sub DPS, or again more of kind of like a supportive DPS, I guess you could say. A hybrid character is what she's categorized as here, right? Because she does have damage output of her own, but she also has buffs. But she specifically wants to buff Havoc basic attack users, which is kind of niche, right? Because she's now, I mean, as you can see, she's down here at tier 1. Part of the reason why is because she has competition, right? I mean, if we go all the way back up to here for Sanhua, dude, she's at tier 0 at S6. Of course, you have to be aware, this is with her ranking at S6, but I think the game's been out for long enough that a lot of us have S6. I have every single character S6 except for the 5-star characters. All my 4-stars are S6, and it's been like that for a while now, right? Unless a new 4-star comes out, right? Now, with Sanhua, bro, she immediately was like the perfect go-to for a character like Camellia, who is a Havoc character, right? So who does Roccia wanna friggin' buff? She wants to buff Camellia. Bro, she's got competition out here. Okay, she's got S6 Sanhua, and Sanhua, oh my gosh, she's so easy to use. She barely has to be on field at all. She's on there. She's out there for like 2 seconds. She comes, she kisses you on the cheek, and she says goodbye, and you just get out there and you deal some damage, okay? Now, with Roccia, it's a bit different, right? She does want to be on field a bit longer and whatnot, and she does have some pretty solid damage output of her own, which is why she sits here in the hybrid slot, right? Because she does, again, have good damage output of her own, but she's more of one of those type of characters that wants to be like maybe on field a little bit more than someone like Sanhua, which literally only has to push like a button, right? Or 2, and then she's off the field. Like, it's hard to compete against Sanhua as Roccia when you have, let's say, the best character to support as a Havoc supporter or Havoc like sub DPS is Camellia. It's just facts. Of course, you do have Havoc Rover as well too, which Havoc Rover is still a thing, still a strong character, right? But that's what Roccia wants to do. It almost makes you wonder that like maybe you might want to not necessarily run her as the supportive role and potentially almost the main DPS role, because again, she is that hybrid character. Remember the days when Changli first came out, and although she is a hybrid role character, when she first came out, people were running her as main DPS in some cases, right? Or just on dual DPS comps, etc., etc. And with Roccia, she is really, really easy to use. She's a lot of fun, I'll admit. Her play style is super fun, really easy to use, but unfortunately, she just has a lot of competition out there. Right now, she's on the same tier as Mortefi, and that's not a bad thing. Mortefi is really, really good. He did get dropped down a little bit from tier 0.5, and we'll talk about that later. But with Roccia, this is the main reason why we're here. This is why I always start the video with the new character and move to the other characters after. We'll get to that stuff. But with Roccia, she just has so much competition right now. It is hard to place her any higher than she is right now. Maybe as we play test her out more, she might rise up. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, at optimal levels, which is what this tier list is based on, she just doesn't have the same juice as someone like Sanhua. It's kind of silly that if you were to judge the character based on their own performance, she would actually do better, but that's not always how we judge things per se, especially if they're the more hybrid role or sub-DPS role, because they have to be on a team with other characters. And who is she going to be on the team that like she functions with the best? Havoc Rover, or someone like Camellia, or of course, like I said, you could try to run her as maybe the main, some goofy little team where she's the main or something like that. Something very important to talk about with Roccia is that she has the best grouping in the entire game. What I mean by that is like in AoE situations, she's able to use her resonance skill and pull all the enemies together, kind of like Kazuha from Genshin Impact if you ever played that character, or if you know what I'm talking about here. Her grouping is really, really good in AoE content. The problem is in Tower of Adversity, which is what this tier list is based on, most of what we're dealing with right now is single target enemies. Like the main bosses, there's just one of them, right? And if it's not one of them, there's maybe like two of them or something. It's not that big of a deal in terms of like having to have a grouper. That's one reason why Genshin started to fall off in the earlier stages of the game, is because we didn't really need her grouping anymore, right? That was a big part of why she moved down. And the same thing with Roccia, we don't really need a grouper right now in the current content that we're facing. Maybe someday in the future, when we do need that grouping, she will rise up. And I think we will see her rise up eventually. I just don't think this is the time for her. Maybe some other time we'll see her rise up when maybe we need her grouping, and she might be better for certain situations than a Sanhua, who is not necessarily going to help us with that, right? She just very quickly comes out, gets the buffs out, and then she's gone. And she helps a character like Camellia so much because Camellia wants to be on the field for a really long time. She's a very selfish DPS. She wants to be out there a whole lot in a lot of cases. Like, obviously it depends on how you play her, but that is how most people are playing Camellia. And so a character like Sanhua just synergizes with that really, really well, despite not having specific Havoc buffs. But she does have the basic attack buffs you want for Camellia, so it's really, really hard to compete with that. But again, I think we'll see Roccia rise up once we get maybe some more AoE content, or maybe some other character that she might be able to help out more. You know, I think her role has not quite been needed yet. It's almost like she released too early or something like that. But anyways, her skill is really good for grouping. Her outro is really solid for the basic attack buffs, and you also get a flat attack buff off of her as well. This is all very, very strong and synergetic with a lot of characters, but unfortunately, like, it's just not quite synergizing as well as we want. We want her whole kit to synergize with the current meta, and unfortunately only part of it does. The grouping doesn't really help right now. But none of that matters anyway, because she's got like the coolest little pet in the whole game, the little ghost man that reminds us of that blue Pokemon. You know who I'm talking about? What's that dude's name? Wobbuffet? Was it Wobbuffet? Wobbuffet. Yeah, dude, like, bro, that takes me back, bro. I'm sorry. Like, it's cool. She's cool. It's cool. But now I really want to talk about Mortefi, because I don't know if I agree with this placement fully. Honestly, when you look at it, tier 1's not that bad, right? Sanhua, Jeje at the top right here makes a lot of sense. You see Changli down here. I mean, I still, dude, Changli is such an interesting character that, like, she almost needs her own column. Like, this in between DPS and hybrid, it's almost like you need Changli tier or something like that, because, like, I don't know, man. I think the amount of stuff you can get off of her is so good that, like, at times you almost want to put her at tier 0. It's a tough one with Changli. That's why they gave her the multi-role tag, and she deserves it, because she deserves a multi-role tag. She's a multi-role character, and she does have the expert tag too, meaning that if you play her really, really well at optimal level, which is harder to do, she can be considered a tier 0 character. That's what this expert tag right here means, right? She also has cancels and cleans. We don't need to go into this. We all know Changli's goated. So maybe that's why, if you're going to put her down here at tier 0.5, is Mortefi better? Is Mortefi as good as that? I don't know. Is Mortefi as good as Yangyang? That's a little bit hard to say, right? The reasoning for why they've brought Mortefi down is because his best team right now is Jian. He wants to buff heavy attack users, and when you look up here, there's not a whole lot of choices. It's pretty much just Jian, right? So they're saying that he's going to go right back up the moment that another top tier heavy attack user comes in, and they have admitted that they will bring him back up. They just want people to understand that because of the lack of teams he has, that's why they've brought him down. Now, I don't know if I fully agree with that, though, because just because this is a tier list, right? This is a tier list. We're using things at optimal level, right? Jian still clears, right? Jian still clears. And there are ways to play Jian where arguably he deserves the expert level role, which would mean that if you play him really, really well, he almost deserves to be at tier 0, right? If he was to have that expert role, that's what that means. At optimal level, you can consider him to be a tier higher than it is. That's genuine. Why do you think these arrows are here on the expert role? It's because if you play him optimally, you just put him up a tier. And arguably, he deserves that because there's ways to play him where you could have that. And that would mean he's a tier 0. And that means his best support is down here at tier 1. I don't know if that makes sense. I understand the change if what you're trying to convey is that he just doesn't have a lot of teams right now. But bro, think about this for a second. Why are you going to leave Jian up here, right? And then lower his best support? I don't know if I fully agree with the choice, right? I don't know if I do. I think they maybe should have just put, like, you know the watch tag? It's like a little eyeball that they sometimes use. Maybe they should have put that on him to say, hey, just so you guys are aware, we have a notation to make about Mortefi, okay? We want y'all to know that he doesn't have a whole lot of teams, and so we're keeping an eye on the guy. If things don't change, maybe we drop him. If he gets more characters that he can support, then we raise him up. That's the type of thing I would want to see, rather than drop him down to make such a heavy statement. That's a pretty big statement, is to just drop the guy down. But does he deserve it? Is Jian doing worse now? He's not. So why drop Mortefi down? I don't know. Did we get any supports? Did we get any supports up here that deserve for him to be dropped down? Is anyone taking his place? No. They're not. So I don't think I'm agreeing with this one. In fact, I'm going to have to put my line in the sand. I don't agree with the Mortefi drop because it doesn't really make sense to me. The more I think about it, the less it makes sense. I understand why they did it. I just don't agree with having done it. I think they should have done something different. All right, I wanted to talk about the Yangyang situation, okay? She's one of the Yangyang twins, okay? I don't know where the other one is, but she's here, okay? And we have the expert tag on her, as you can see. We'll get into that in just a moment. You see her getting bumped up with this green arrow. She was down here before. And more importantly than all of that, I just want to reiterate, I don't know if you guys, saw this in previous lists or whatever, but she's in the hybrid slot, okay? She used to be over here in the support slot. She's parked here in parking lot B. She used to be parked over here in parking lot C not too long ago, okay? And we've been saying it since the beginning. So many of us been saying for so long that she deserved to be here the entire time, the hybrid slot, okay? Like, why? Why was she over here? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, she got AoE, right? She has the expert tag. She's got cancels, okay? Part of why she got bumped up is because of Carlotta. She's been proven to work well, perform very well with Carlotta, right? And that's a free-to-play option, right? That's value right there on people's accounts, right? Everybody has at least one copy of her, even if you don't have her at S6. But again, this tier list is based on S6, so be aware of that. And I know you guys saw the expert tag. That means that you could bump her up one whole tier if, and only if, you are playing her at optimal level, which, let's be honest, guys, not all of you are, okay? Just be aware of that. But she works really well on quick swap teams with, Zhengli Yao and with Changli. Are you guys, honestly, be honest with yourselves, are all of you playing quick swap teams? I don't know. Not all of you are, okay? So just be aware of that, okay? Just be aware of that. There's nothing wrong with not playing quick swap teams, okay? I'm just saying that, some of her best teams do require you to play her at a more optimal level, so just be aware of that. But again, she's really strong with Carlotta, and the fact that you can have a free-to-play option with Carlotta that isn't necessarily Zheje, because not everybody pulled Zheje. That patch that came out wasn't as hype for a lot of people. Part of it was Zheje. Just some people just weren't interested. You know what I mean? And everyone was interested in Zhengli Yao because he just instantly came out and he was a smash hit and everybody got him for free. and he was super duper hot fire, and he had a really, really strong support in the game in the form of Yinlin, which most people that were there at launch pulled for, because of course you did. Just look at her. Jesus. So everybody pretty much was stoked about the Zheng Liao situation and not necessarily the Zheje situation, and a lot of people wanted his weapon, because his weapon is OP as frick. Okay, that weapon is goated, bro. I'm so stoked that I was trying to tell people, just get that weapon, guys. I know, like, if you can't, like, look, don't spend money. Okay, don't spend money. Please don't. But if you got the pulls just lying around, just sitting there lying around doing nothing, consider getting the weapon, because it's so good. It's so good, and it's going to be good on other characters that come out that use the gauntlet. And because people were using their pulls maybe to get the weapon and, you know, use on him, or they were dry after using it on Changli and Jinzhou, and maybe they were waiting for future characters to come out, they didn't necessarily pull Zheje. So having Carlotta in the game, a lot of people pulled Carlotta. If you don't have Zheje, you know, characters like Yangyang all of a sudden have a lot more value, because you can use them with a character like Carlotta, and that's big for a 4-star character. Tons of value there. And real quick, the last thing I wanted to go over here is the new multi-role tag added to Changli. Look at this woman. She has more color and pizzazz going on than any of the other characters on this list. She looks like, you know, those generals when they get all those accolades on like their across their heart or whatever. They get all the freaking cool accolades they get. This is her. She has multi-role, expert role, cancel, cleave. She can do it all, and she can also get you off. This is a super fun character. Still to this day, in my opinion, probably the most fun character to play in the entire game. Love this chick. Anyways, if you guys like this kind of stuff, consider leaving a like and subscribe. That's the changes to the list for now. We'll be back here again in the future. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.